Hello everybody and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest video of New Music Weekly. It's April 21st, 2023, and this is the show where I give you guys the top prog headlines for the week, some of the top prog singles that I've come across, and just some updates for the channel and what's going on here on Nathan on Shuffle. So, a really interesting list of prog news today. If you're interested in this type of thing, I do this fairly regularly, weekly, in fact, and so it would be great to have you guys on board. Any subscriptions are well appreciated. Getting close to 3,000 subscribers, which is pretty exciting, so thank you guys for your support. And of course, as always, a like or comment is always very much appreciated, so thank you guys. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to come on last week because of just different things going on with my schedule and whatnot. But this week I have some catch up to do and have some interesting items. A lot of old school prog acts with some interesting news to talk about. So let's get into it. Item number 1. I usually like to talk first about the big new prog releases that have come out this weekend. And the first is Jethro Tull's album Rock Flute, which is a new album from the group a year after their previous release, The Zealot Gene, which came out last year, which I believe came out quite a while after the Christmas album by Jethro Tull. It was a bit of a span and a hiatus. Of course, Ian Anderson did his own solo works in that time, and some would argue that the current Jethro Tull lineup isn't much different than Ian Anderson's solo, but they've decided to use the Jethro Tull name, and I think it's some really good music that's being released here with Rock Flute. I think it's a step above the Zealot Gene, much in the same lane and in the same style, but I think it's a bit rockier, a bit more energetic and interesting, and so it's a really cool release. I gave my full thoughts and a full review on the channel this week, so please check out that review if you want more information about it. The other big release that I saw was the Mars Volta with Que Dios te maldiga mi corazón, which is basically an acoustic reworking of their self-titled album that came out last year. So if you're interested in acoustic versions of those songs, which were already more pop-centric and lighter fare than what they're typically known for with their more chaotic early albums that were more King Crimson, crazy prog focused, but their newer album is much more streamlined, much more poppy in a sense, but it still has their core and their sound and style in it. So this is an acoustic version of that album that's out. Also coming off the heels of the Jethro Tull album release, Jethro Tull are going to be touring the US later this year in support of their new album. They've announced a run of US dates and what they're calling the 7 Decades Tour. 17 dates spread across a 4-month period between August and November. The first show is scheduled at the Ravenna Festival in Highland Park, Illinois on August 18th. So more touring news coming out, which is really fun and interesting. They're playing in a lot of different dates across North America, so that should be really cool to see Jethro Tull out there and promoting this new album that just came out. So item number 2, continuing on with the touring news, I saw that Dream Theater announced their Dreamsonic 2023 North American tour with special guests Devin, Townsend, and Animals as leaders. So it's a little bit of a festival, mini festival type vibe, this trio of really amazing artists that are well known in the prog metal scene coming together to do this really cool concert and tour. So there's definitely a lot of cool dates going through June and July. Should be a lot of fun and just a lot of technical virtuosity on display with those types of musicians. Just a lot going on there between Dream Theater, Devin Townsend, and Animals as leaders. So if you're a fan of any of those groups or just highly well-played technical progressive metal music, then I think this is a good spot to be in. So check out those dates and see if any are near you if you're in the US and able to attend some of those dates. So that was item number 2. Item number 3, just today, I saw the announcement of Gentle Giant's Interview getting a Steven Wilson remix coming out in June. So Interview was their 1976 album. Gentle Giant are one of my favorite groups of all time, a classic UK prog act that are very eclectic and fun. And Interview is probably, to me, a little bit of their last gasp of their like really great prog records. I think it's a little bit underrated because it comes after a lot of the classics that people really identify with as the best of the band, like Freehand and In a Glass House and Power and the Glory. But I think Interview is a fantastic record, really diverse, really interesting, and really showcasing all of their prog chops on display. So it's a really cool album, coming out with a Steven Wilson remix version on CD, 5.1 Blu-ray, also a special limited blue-colored vinyl version on 180 gram vinyl through Chrysalis Records on June 16th. There's a video out that talks about the release and a little bit of a trailer, teaser kind of thing. So this should be a really cool release for Gentle Giant. They did it basically with Freehand not too long ago, so it makes sense to continue forward and do it with Interview. So unfortunately, last show I talked about the passing of Ray Schulman, who died at age 73 a couple weeks ago, which was a really hard blow for the progressive rock community. So this comes off the heels of that. So a good way to celebrate Gentle Giant at this time, even as they're really dealing with a huge loss in the band. So should be a really cool release, and I'm really excited to get my copy, and maybe I'll do a little bit of a showcase of it when it comes around. So I'm excited for that. Back to the touring news at item number 4, Carl Palmer resurrects Prog supergroup Emerson, Lake and Palmer with modern technology for some U.S. live dates coming up. So this is coming in July, it looks like, and some select U.S. dates. I remember talking about this before, about Carl Palmer doing a bit of a hologram to showcase Keith Emerson and Greg Lake. So since they've passed, unfortunately, to be able to, in some ways, be able to continue the legacy forward with Emerson, Lake and Palmer. So that should be something to behold, some interesting U.S. tour dates for this continued run of this show that Carl Palmer is doing. So it should be pretty fun, pretty interesting to check out. I always like to hear what Emerson, Lake and Palmer are doing, one of the classic early prog bands that I've always really loved. So just wanted to put that out there for people who are interested. Item number 5, I want to talk a bit about Camel. Andy Latimer, unfortunately, had to cancel their live dates with Camel because he went in for some back surgery. Fortunately, they talked about recently, the band gave news that his surgery went pretty well and that it looks like he's going to be able to recover well. At least they're very positive about it, and the results look really good. So I thought that was good news to share. So it seems like there's good promise there that Andy Latimer will be able to get back on his feet and be able to recover and continue forward. And so I'm really happy about that news. But also on the same token, I did see that there's a new big compilation release or something of that nature coming from Camel as well, featuring their 10 studio albums from 1973 to 1984, plus a host of rarities and live tracks. This will be released later this year on both MCA Records and the Decca label is where all these albums came out. So this is a big 32 disc box set, really massive as well. It's called Airborne, the MCA and Decca Years 1973 to 1984, featuring newly remastered versions of every Camel album and single issued between those years, but also some new stereo and 5.1 surround sound mixes of the albums Camel, Mirage, music inspired by the Snow Goose, Moon Madness, and Nude. So all of their classics are coming out remastered in this big, massive box set. It should be a really cool collection and something to behold that's coming out later this year. So some interesting Camel news that I wanted to share for those that are fans of the band, that Andy Latimer hopefully is doing well and doing better after his surgery and dealing with his medical issues, but then they're releasing a big compilation 32 disc box set to celebrate the band later this year. So really cool. A couple bonus items I wanted to mention. I'll go through these more quickly. David Gilmour's first wife, Ginger, is releasing Behind the Wall. This is a book So his first wife, Ginger Gilmore, is publishing a new book on May 24th through New Haven Publishing, charting her life with Gilmore, with whom she had 4 children, and life with Pink Floyd in the 1970s. So this should be a cool look behind the scenes to Pink Floyd and David Gilmour in this Behind the Wall book. So I wanted to point that one out from David Gilmour's first wife. So Envy of None is releasing an EP coming out soon. And Envy of None features Rush guitarist Alex Lifeson, more of a modern type sounding, alternative type sound, really cool, interesting. They came out with a debut record last year, so it's cool that they're following it up so soon. But this is a shorter EP with a couple new tracks, and then I believe some remixes of some of their tracks from the first album. So should be a really cool listen for the band. I'm really interested in their progress, of course, because they feature classic Rush guitarist Alex Lifeson, but just because they're a new, fresh group that has a really interesting sound. And then also the Pineapple Thief are releasing an 8-disc selection of their catalog called How Did We Find Our Way, 1999 to 2006, releasing in June on Kscope. So this will feature a lot of their early records and some of that period in the band. And so for fans of the Pineapple Thief, this should be a cool set and a cool collection, of course, being featured in all of the best formats and in high quality. So should be really cool to behold. So a lot there, a lot of cool news from bands both classic and newer. And now we get into the Prog singles list, which has a couple bonusy type things also on it, because remember, I'm basically covering 2 weeks of episodes here. So first on the Prog singles list is Big Big Train's The First Rebreather, a live version of it that is in advance of their upcoming tour, to just kind of give you a flavor of what to expect of them live. And it features, of course, their new singer, Alberto Bravin, who is an incredible singer. Unfortunately, David Lungden, their past singer, passed away, so he's taking the reins a bit and doing a fantastic job, it sounds like. So really excited for the band, and they have an upcoming release also called Ingenious Devices, which features some unreleased orchestral piece and also some classics from the band, maybe reworked and done live and different things like that. So not a full-on new studio record, but more a collection of some of that kind of stuff, and it should be really cool. Avkrist released their track Arcane Clouds. This is a Norwegian group that are coming out with their first record for Inside Out soon. This is the second single taken from that record, and it sounds really great. Really looking forward to this album, in fact, and I think it's going to be a good one. So really check out that track. It's really cool. Their first track they released was very much in that Opeth style vein. This one also similar to that, but a bit more laid back and atmospheric in its style, but really great modern prog there. Number 3, Arjen Lukason's Supersonic Revolution and the track The Golden Age of Music, which is celebrating all of the classic 70s inspired music that Arjen really loves. A lot of references throughout the track of all these classic albums and bands and things, so it's a really fun Easter egg for people who love 70s rock music, essentially, and just done in a really cool style that's like that classic sound and has a bit of that like Deep Purple type vibe, a little bit of that early proto glam rock and early metal type sound. So really cool stuff to check out. That new album should be really good. That's coming out. This is actually the title track from it, and so that'll be coming out on May 14th. I also put the cover of Jesus He Knows Me from Genesis. This is a cover by Ghost, of course, a more modern metal type band doing a Genesis cover, and it's really clever and creative. The official music video is a little bit, has some content stuff, so I linked more of a lyric video, something a little bit safer to view, like safe for work version, but you can check out their video as well if you're into that type of thing. But yeah, a really cool cover of a classic Genesis track, so thought that was worth showcasing. Also got Einar Solberg's Over the Top, a new solo track from Einar Solberg, who of course is the front man for Leprous, so really sounding good. These tracks are really, really great, a great showcase for his expressive, beautiful vocals. I also have Ring Van Mobius and their new track, long title, the 11th chapter, the 9, including the Fire, Part 2, and a Nonagon in 8. So really cool, very retro sounding prog track from their upcoming new album, Commissioned Works Part 2, 6 Drops of Poison, I believe is the name of the upcoming album, coming in July. So really cool classic sound to them. And then also in the same sort of vein, Karmic Juggernaut and their track Sun Puzzle, which is coming out. They have an album coming out, Phantasmagoria, coming out actually next week, so coming out very soon. Another cool classic prog type thing, very much almost in the jam band type lane. Some really cool playing on flute and some cool sounds from classic prog instruments. So that should be a fun one to check out if you guys are so inclined. So that was some scattershot news, some interesting things coming out over this past week or so. I thought there was some interesting items there. Hopefully you enjoyed some of those items as well. As for the channel, like I mentioned, I did the Jethro Tull review this week for their latest album, so you can go check out that review. Very cool response. I'm really grateful that people were viewing that and checking that one out. Really fun. So that album's out today, so you can go check that one out. Also, I did a top 5 for my favorite prog epics of the 2000s, basically trying to isolate the period between the year 2000 and 2009. Really got some great lists and great responses in the comments. That's always the fun part of doing those top 5s, is seeing your guys' comments and what you think are the best in that particular topic. One of my favorite eras in progressive rock, so I gave a pretty expanded list with a lot of honorable mentions featuring a lot of my favorites. And I've already seen a lot of comments where I'm like, oh, I forgot about that one, I forgot about that one. So thank you guys for reminding me of some of the greats that I had kind of slipped my mind when I was assembling my list for that episode. But definitely check that one out. I should have a new prog album review for you guys this week. A new prog act that I really enjoyed, their debut album, so I'll tease that a little bit. Really retro prog and really fun. So I hope to have a review this week of that album. And then hopefully the typical Prog Song Sunday with Jana this Sunday. So that's really what we've got going on. Me and my wife are soon going to be celebrating our anniversary, so we're prepping for a little bit of a trip and a little bit of time off. So the content may be a little bit lighter over the next few weeks, but I'll always make sure that there's something going on here. So you'll never have to go a week without some kind of video from me, whether you like it or not. So anyways, thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you're having a great time out there. There's so much great music. It's hard to keep up, at least from my perspective, but I'm trying to share as much as I can with you guys of what I come across that I find to be really good. So thank you guys so much for all that you do, and I'll hopefully catch you guys in a future video. Thanks everybody. Bye.